Hi, and welcome to the next topic of this module. Now in this topic, we will learn about how to use the static keyword in Java. And now again, I will try to make this topic very short and crisp. That is, in this topic, I will give you a very brief introduction of how to use static keyword in Java. Now, what can be static? In Java, we can have the variable and the method as static in nature. But apart from these two, we have static blocks and also nested static classes. But those two topics are actually out of the scope for this course. So we can primarily throw some light on the static variable and methods. So one by one, let us check these out. So within the IntelliJ IDE, let us now clean up our code. And at the bottom as well, let us remove all the code. And at the bottom, I will now define some of the rules that we need to follow in order to check out the topic of static keyword. So firstly, let us now check out what do we mean by the static variable. Now whenever we define a variable, it is actually present within the class. So here as for example, I will create a class of employee. Now when we create the class of employee, the first thing that comes in your mind is the name of the employee. Now the value of the string name will vary for each of the employee object, right, as we all know from our previous tutorials. So here is the comment line for that. The value of the string name will vary for each of the employee object. Now here currently let us make it public by nature. Now if we create a static string of company and here let us give it a value of, let's say, intern Shala. Now for each of the employee, the company name should be same. As for example, for Rahul, for Ravi and for Tony, the name of the company is actually intern Shala. That is, the value intern Shala is common in all the case. Now whenever we have some value in common to all the objects, then in that case we make it static. Now whenever we declare a static variable in Java, it actually belongs to a class. That is, it actually belongs to the class of employee, not to a particular object. Because this static variable of company, whose value is intern Shala, will be common to all the employees. So in the runtime, only one string variable of company will be created within the memory. So it will actually help us to save the memory. So here, let us write a comment line. It belongs to class, not to a object. Now, as we all know that for each of the employee, our company name will be intern Shala, right? So why don't we convert this static string company into a constant? Now to convert this value as constant, we have to use the final keyword. So static final string company equal to intern Shala, like this. So this value of company will never change throughout our program. It will always be a constant value, and it belongs to a class, not to an object. Now as we all know, in order to access the string name, we need to use the object. So here I will use employee space e1 equal to new employee object and then use e1 dot, let's call it name, like this, equal to, let's say, Rahul. So no doubt till now. Now the question arises, how can we access the static variable of company? So for that we need to check our rule. The syntax is use the class name dot the variable name to access the variables, and here we have some warning. Do not use objects to access the static variable, which means that you should never use e1 dot company name like this. It will actually show some warning that here the static member is actually accessed with the help of the object. So in Java, it is not an error, but it is a very bad programming practice, because the primary purpose of the static variable is to define the variable for a particular class, not for an object, right? Now the question arises, how can we access this value of intern Shala? So for that, we have a syntax of class name dot variable name. So at the top, we can use employee dot company like this. Now let us print this out. So here, let us now run the code. So there we go, we are getting intern Shala. Now, if we want to create one more object, employee space e2 equal to new employee and give e2 dot name equal to, let's say, Sam. So in that situation as well, the value of the company will remain same because this variable has nothing to do with the object of E1 and E2. It is only present within the class, right? So here what I will do, let us remove all the code that belongs to the object. And along with this, also make a note that you cannot modify the value of employee.company because we are using the final keyword here. So if we try to use employee.company Oracle, then it is actually not allowed in Java because we are using the final keyword, and once it is declared final, then it becomes a constant value. Now at the end, since the static variables belong to a class, not to the object, so they are also called as the class variables in Java. So here string company is actually the class variable. Now what if I want to create a static field whose value should always change? So for that we need to remove this final keyword. So currently let us create static, let's say int count equal to, let's say, 0. Now here if you want you can use the public keyword, it is totally up to your choice. So public static int count equal to 0. Now here again it is actually the static variable or the class variable because it belongs to the class, not to an object, right? But here it is not a constant value. The value of count we can change it anytime. Now again we need to follow some rule. In order to access the variable of count, we again need to use the class name employee.count. Now this time suppose if I make the value to, let's say, 20 and then use the print statement of employee.count, then it will simply print out the value as 20. Let us now run the code. And there we go, the value is now 20. So without creating any object, we can simply change the value of the counter variable which is static in nature like this. And now coming up next, what about the static methods? So let us explore the static methods as well in the next video.